Is it not working? Oh, come on.
Welcome to War of the Stars, a Star Wars podcast, coming to you every week from deep within the Outer Rim, far beyond the watchful ice of the Galactic Empire. Join your hosts, John Mark Tolly, Garrett K. Jones, and Brian Karasek, as they discuss the various facets of the saga's lore, characters, review the films, and discuss every tidbit of news coming out of Lucasfilm. And remember, this isn't just my Star Wars, this isn't just your Star Wars, this is our Star Wars.
There we go.
Hey, there we go. That's right. As the dulcet tones of the handsome narrator just said. I mean, I'm assuming he's handsome. I couldn't see his face. This is War of the Stars, a Star Wars podcast. This, of course, is John Mark Tolly, your host, one of your hosts. And, of course, we also have our other host.
I already got introduced by that handsome-sounding fellow in the intro.
That's right. That's right. Garrett K. Jones, Brian Karasek. We are here. We hope you all had a great holiday season, whatever you celebrate or don't celebrate, or whatever. That you got lots of good, cool gifts and had a good time with friends and family. But we are back, 2025, a new year for War of the Stars. And Garrett, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about Galactic Civil War. This is going to be our Civil War discourse.
What's so civil about Civil War?
I don't know. Maybe it's friendly. No, we're talking about the conflict that rages between the Galactic Empire and the Rebel Alliance, and spans the scope of technically 4 films, 5 if you count Solo. Even though we don't really see a whole lot of the rebellion in that. We definitely get it in Rogue One, also the original film, obviously, and then Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi is where that Galactic Civil War, for the most part, comes to its climax. Although, for some reason, it never really ends because we've got the First Order and the Resistance in the sequel trilogy.
Yeah. Though I would consider that to be almost a different conflict.
Or a continuation of the same conflict, I think.
Yeah, I don't know, because, I mean, if you're going to go with that, then if you're going to look historically, then you would have to consider World War II simply a continuation of the First World War.
It was. If you pull on those threads, my friend, what you'll actually see is the events that happened at the tail end of World War I, actually laid the groundwork for a certain Austrian-born individual with a funny mustache to take control of a Central European nation and turn it into an empire during the early part of the 20th century.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to go back that farther, then you could say that the Franco-Prussian War, that's all just a continuation of the Franco-Prussian War, and that's just a continuation of the Napoleonic Wars, and
it's all connected, Mark.
It is. Anyway, we're not talking about that.
No, we're not. Brian, you're being awfully quiet down there.
I think Brian froze. Brian is having technical difficulties, I think.
Either that or he's channeling his dark powers.
We can't hear him.
He's frozen again, or he looks decidedly nonplussed.
I know I'm uncomfortable because I'm getting about every third word from you.
Oh,
you guys, can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
But...
Are you able to hear me, guys?
Yeah,
we can hear you. There you go. You're moving.
Okay. I'm running or what?
There we go.
So, what are your thoughts on the Galactic Civil War, Brian?
Well, history is always written by the victors.
Does that mean we are the champions?
Yay!
The end of the Galactic Civil War was put to rest after 5.5 minutes because the dark side pulled out. In the meantime,
well, we're having some technical difficulties. It seems like with Brian. Hopefully, he'll be able to get back on.
It's the beginning of the year. What makes you think that this was going to be an easy episode?
I don't know. It's just so hilarious that we're talking about the Galactic Civil War and the pro Empire guy is the first one to drop out.
I know, right? Oh man. So Galactic Civil War spans 4-5-ish movies.
Yeah.
And although to be fair, I mean each major conflict throughout the various trilogies is in itself a civil war. Because I mean, if you look at the insurrection that takes place during the prequel trilogy and the Clone Wars, that's a civil war in and of itself because you have all these systems that are wanting to
separate.
They want to separate themselves from the rest of the
Republic.
The Republic is essentially fighting itself.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of those systems that were part of the Separatist Alliance, they became members of the Rebel Alliance.
Well, some of them fed back into the Empire because they felt like they were being listened to finally.
Yeah.
But then others were corralled back in because of the Empire's use of force, which then prompted the joining of the Rebel Alliance. And even then, there wasn't much of a Rebel Alliance up until you get to Rogue One, when there were all a bunch of disparate systems.
Yeah, you see the kind of bringing together of the Alliance in the show Rebels, especially near the last 2 seasons when you have Mon Mothma, officially, leaving the Senate and officially making the Declaration of Rebellion.
Right.
But it's interesting to see how it evolved, and you see it, like I said, through the show Rebels. It's really interesting to see it evolve from the more traditional resistance group where there are these small cells that kind of operate independently of each other, and their main goal is just disruption and just to cause chaos and disrupt the things within the Empire, to a more traditional looking military.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting is, I mean, like, I'm looking at the list of concurrent events. I mean, obviously we have the early rebellion against the Galactic Empire, but the concurrent events, we've got the Great Jedi Purge that kicks off right at the end of the Clone Wars, going into the Imperial era. We've got the Ryloth insurgency, the Mandalorian Civil War. We have the War of the Shu Tarun, the War of the Bounty Hunters, War against the Sith, Jalen Vrax's campaign, Scourge of the Droids, and border skirmishes with the new Separatist Union. So you've got all these other elements that are going on and kicking in all at the same time, and the whole thing was just absolute chaos. And hey, he's back.
Hey, we think.
Can you hear us now?
Hello?
Hello.
I can hear you, but
Hmm.
He's not. He's frozen up again. Well, this episode is brought to you by Carbonite Freezing Services, because who better to get things frozen for you? Well, yeah. Anyway,
Hopefully Brian will be able to join us.
yeah, hopefully. So when you were a kid and you were originally watching through the trilogy, did it ever dawn on you that this whole thing started off as a civil war, or did it just like how did it connect for you?
I think, I don't know. I never really thought of it like that. I thought of it more as like a revolution, like a rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it more of akin to the American Revolution, where it's these group of rebels, because they're even called rebels, who are attempting to overthrow a government or
Right.
put a old government back in. So I never really looked. I looked at it as more akin to the American Revolution or the French Revolution or the Russian or something like that.
Yeah.
I never really looked at it as a civil war.
Yeah, it's definitely more of a revolutionary type, conflict. What's interesting though is like you look at everything that takes place leading up to the war. I'm looking here at the timeline, and the war doesn't officially start until 2 BBY, or two years before the Battle of Yavin. So 2 years prior to the events of the original film is where the war officially kicks off. And you had rebel cells striking 2 years prior to that in 4 BBY. But then, like, one of the biggest where the open war officially begins is during the Battle of Scarif, with the theft of the original Death Star plans by Jyn Erso and Cassian Andor in 1 BBY, and that's a year before the events of the official battle. And so, what's interesting though is the Battle of Scarif is 1 year before the Battle of Yavin.
So that doesn't make any sense, because the way it's shot, it's almost like the end of the Battle of Scarif, when the plans are taken on.
Right.
That goes right into A New Hope.
It does. But what's interesting though is it doesn't. I mean, there could be months where the Tantive 4, Princess Leia's personal ship, is jumping from system to system to avoid the Imperials. And there could have been months of her doing that to avoid detection. But then at that point, she is, she's negligent of her senatorial duties for almost a year, which at that point I think would kind of single her out as being involved if she's not showing up and there's no and her personal craft had been spotted at the Battle of Scarif. So yeah, that's kind of a weird setup there. But so there could be some time in between the events of Battle of Scarif and where we jump into the action in A New Hope. But again, the note here on Wikipedia says that the exact beginning date is disputed.
Yeah.
So
because I've seen some people say that, like, the Siege of Ryloth, that was kind of was the beginning of it. I've heard other people say other things, but I've heard a lot of people mention Ryloth that.
Well, Ryloth does pop up the Ryloth insurgency pops up because the siege of Ryloth happened during the Clone Wars.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Ryloth insurgency is completely different because at that point Ryloth was trying to become a little bit more independent from the Empire.
Yeah.
They had stuck to their guns about being a part of the Republic and fighting off the Separatists, and then they go on to break away.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking here at Wikipedia, and apparently the Battle of Scarif is 1 BBY. So it really makes me wonder what happens in between the events of Rogue One and A New Hope, because I mean you could almost watch them back to back.
I mean, if you look at that, like a year, like you could have a lot of things happen at 1 BBY. So like if something was to happen, let's say December 29th, 2024, you'd say that was a year before. It would be, you could say it happened on 2024 and another event happened in 2025 just a few days later.
Yeah, that's true.
It would still be. So yeah. Let's see if this works now. Are you there?
All right. Apologies. I had to Yep. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Check. Okay, great. Had to restart my router. Thanks, Brightspeed. They're big fans of the show.
Hooray for those rural internet providers. So Brian, we were.
I did hear a little bit of the conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. We were just talking about like kind of the timeline of it, and what were your thoughts? Like, I mean, you got to begin watching the trilogy before any of us did. What, like, for you, did it ever register that what we were watching was the makings of a civil war? I think he froze up again. No! Just when we thought he was back in. Nobody watching this episode is ever going to get this joke, but right now, Brian is the Ross Perot of our group. He's back, he's gone, he's back, he's gone.
But he doesn't have charts.
This is yet. He doesn't have charts yet. Sorry, we're making a lot of jokes at Brian's expense, but only because this is super funny. Otherwise, everybody would be making jokes at my expense because, I'm that guy. Anyway.
So it looks like Brian is not going to be able to make it.
We'll see.
He just sent a Facebook message. He just sent a Facebook message and said that he's going to have to dip out this week.
Bummer.
Yeah.
Bummer. That actually sucks because he's got so much great insight when it comes to this kind of stuff. And it's always fun to hear his perspective on things, especially considering the fact that he is pro-Empire. And there are times, I'll be honest with you, John, that when Brian is talking and he's sharing his perspective, I kind of understand his point from the Imperial side of things, and I kind of want to side with them.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, my computer's freezing up. What's it doing?
It's froze on my side. I can still hear you.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you can still hear me. Yeah, I'm getting the weird pinwheel of death thing on my computer. There we go.
No.
Well, I'm probably gonna have to restart my computer at some point. It's been in a flux mode for a while. Anyway, so yeah, so what's probably one of your favorite moments or one of the most standout moments of Galactic Civil War for you?
That's hard. I'm gonna have to go show by show and movie by movie because I think each one has a different. The scene in Rebels where Mon Mothma is on the Ghost and she officially declares that she's left the Senate, and that it goes officially from like just this ragtag group of rebel cells to the official name, the Alliance to Restore the Republic, and them arriving on Yavin 4. As far as if you're looking for something that's like takes not necessarily a pro-Empire view, but paints the Empire, it's the scene in season 1 of Andor where that rebel cell has infiltrated that Imperial base and has the commandant and their family held hostage. Like that just showed me like, oh, now I can see why some of the Imperials would hate these guys.
Yeah,
like that was a real standout. Of course, Battle of Hoth.
Yeah, that commandant's son is not going to. He's not going to be.
Oh no, he's going to grow up to be like a very, very strong Imperial.
Yeah, he's going to be very pro-Imperial.
And there's a lot of really good fan films that take place during that. I don't know if you've watched any of Bucketheads.
I have not, no, but I need to.
There's 3 episodes. They're very well done. They just dropped the episode 3, and it takes place in the aftermath of Endor.
Okay.
And deals with that. Like right now, they're in the middle of Operation Cinder, getting ready to start, which is the aftermath. And so yeah, I think Battle of Hoth is another big one. First time seeing the giant AT-ATs. And first time seeing. Sorry, my daughter was just peeked in.
No worries.
Seeing ground combat. Prior to that, we'd only seen the starfighters. That's one thing I think I really like about with the original 3 trilogies is when it comes to the battles, each movie showcased a different types of battle. Like in A New Hope, episode 4, it was all starfighters. It was just strictly, dogfights. In Empire, it was ground combat. We've got to see Imperial troops versus, the rebels on the ground.
Well, and then we also did get to see, what would be the planetary equivalent of a deep, like a naval search and destroy mission.
Yeah.
With what the Empire is doing, trying to track down the Millennium Falcon.
And then in Return of the Jedi, we kind of got both, along with capital ships going against each other.
Well, and then
which was kind of cool.
And if you look at the ground combat that takes place in Return of the Jedi, they go guerrilla tactics.
Yeah. The first one is more like. Yeah. Because like Empire was more trench warfare.
Right. It was trench warfare and your standard grand tactics, because you've got heavy artillery coming towards that trench, but then you've got guerrilla tactics taking place in Return of the Jedi with the rebels and the Ewoks going against the more mechanized Imperials.
So here's a question for you. Going back to Battle of Hoth, who won the Battle of Hoth?
Well, it depends on if you see that the base is routed and the fact that it's no longer used again. I would say the Imperials. But the fact that the Rebels get most of their crew off the planet.
Yeah, to me, I would think if you're going to look at it as an Imperial victory, it would be a Pyrrhic victory.
I don't think it. In fact, I don't consider that one to be a victory for any side. I feel it's a stalemate because no one side came out on top.
Yeah.
Because I mean, think about what Vader's whole premise of that attack was. He's looking for Skywalker. He is looking to take him prisoner, and to prevent the rebels from getting off the planet. Mm-hmm. They don't do that. Luke gets away. Vader was not on the planet from the very beginning. And then when you get to like he had to change his entire tactic and track down the Millennium Falcon, and to use that because if he could get a hold of the Millennium Falcon, he used Leia and Han and Chewbacca to route Skywalker back to him. That was the whole plan. That's the reason why he spent so many assets and committed so many so much time and energy to that campaign, is because he knew that if he could.
I was going to say, and if you're looking at it from the Alliance point of view, the goal, the main goal of those soldiers that were there at the front line facing off against the AT-ATs and the snowtroopers was simply to buy time to allow the rest of Echo Base to be able to be evacuated. And they fulfilled that mission.
Yeah, they did.
They held off the Empire enough time to allow Echo Base to be evacuated, and before they themselves were able to be evacuated. So from that sense, it was a successful mission for the Rebels. And they proved that they were able to stand. I think that was, if you look at it from a in-universe point, that was and the Battle of Yavin were two major events that helped bring a lot of other systems fully into it. And I don't know if it still is canon, but I know in the old EU, those two victories were very instrumental in bringing the Mon Cal into the war. And with the Mon Cal, they brought their Mon Cal troops, which were the one capital ship that was able to go toe to toe with an Imperial class Star Destroyer. Right,
and because at that point they didn't have any capital ships in the Rebel Alliance during the Battle of Yavin, so you get this, and everyone's worried because you've got these X-wing fighters, and while they're nimble and they're fast, you've got you've got a finite amount of them, whereas the Empire could pump out TIE fighter after TIE fighter from a battle station. And when it comes down to it, the Rebels won just by the skin of their teeth because they had the intel to do it. They had at least one fighter pilot who was capable and survived. And then you had, and it was that one moment where they showed the rest of the galaxy, hey, the Empire is not undefeatable.
Yeah.
They're not untouchable. They can be stopped.
Yeah.
But I think for me, probably one of my favorite, my favorite, or one of the moments that stands out to me is just the sheer confidence that Vader has in pursuit of what he's doing in Empire Strikes Back. Because you look at, like, they're sending out all these probe droids all across the galaxy. They specifically start with the Hoth system because it's on the outer rim. It's one of those places where most people aren't going to go.
Yeah.
It seems like a needle in a haystack type of situation. And the fact that he is just sending out these probe droids all over the place, and it comes back with the first read of human life, and even his own officers are like, sir, it's such a remote place. Why would they ever be there? And he's like, because that's like the perfect hiding place.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure Vader's going back to his time as Anakin during the Clone Wars, thinking to himself, "Yeah, this is." Why do you think that? And this is something that just kind of popped into my mind. Is why did the war end after the Battle of Endor? Because you still had to have had several other Imperial fleets out there. Like, that was just one fleet.
But that was the bulk of the Imperial fleet. That's the thing.
This is true.
While there were still some stragglers, that was the bulk of the Imperial fleet. And when the Empire sees most of their ships getting routed, when they see their second Death Star, which was even larger than the first one, being blown up while it's still under construction, on board which was both Darth Vader and the Emperor, that's going to cause a lot of people to desert. Not everybody.
This is true.
But I mean, from that point on, the battle is done. Like, the Imperial leader is gone. There is no second in command. Palpatine was very clear to make sure that he had no other heirs because he wanted absolute power.
Yeah.
And so we've got this, because I'm looking here on Wikipedia, looking at the end of it, because the last battle is the showdown is the Battle of Jakku. And that even happens after the formation of the New Republic. So basically this is the history timeline. You've got, so after the Jedi are destroyed, there's a bunch of growing tensions. There's the birth of the Rebel Alliance. We've got the Lothal campaigns leading up to the Battle of Scarif and the destroying of the first Death Star and the Battle of Yavin. After Yavin, we've got a bunch of other Imperial stuff. There's advancements into the Mid-Rim. The Empire is kind of in disarray. And then you've got, let's see here, the Battle of Hoth, which Hoth was, like I said, it was not a win for either side.
Yeah.
And then then you get the second Death Star being put into production, which leads to the Battle of Endor. Now, the Battle of Endor, as far as cinematic battles, that's the last official battle that we get to see on screen.
Yeah.
But that puts the Empire in turmoil, though. And what I'm reading here, it says, on the day after the Battle of Endor, the Rebel Alliance launched an assault on an Imperial outpost on the far side of Endor. This attack was led by Han Solo and uncovered a lot of data and communications on Imperial plans. In the days following that battle, news of the Emperor's death spread to several worlds across the galaxy, including Tatooine, Naboo, Bespin, and Coruscant. Coruscant's a key one right there. Despite many attempts by the Empire to conceal the fact and declare this information to be false. While there was much celebration, a riot broke out at Coruscant's Monument Plaza. This led to a civil war on Coruscant. The Empire's command structure collapsed without its central leader. TIE pilot Rella Sal later declared that after the Battle of Endor, the Empire lost its head of state and only gained massive factionalism. Meanwhile, Governor Ubric Adelhard, what a name, imposed a blockade at the Anuit sector, denouncing all reports of the Emperor's death as treasonous fabrication. The Moff enforced his rule with purge troopers. He was opposed by a mixture of criminals and nobles in the region. At some point, the Imperial fleet of Moff Royan was cut off from the rest of the Empire and left to fend for itself by the Red Hand cluster, effectively turning it into an Imperial splinter faction, which is probably what led to the First Order. But then we've got Operation Cinder, Battle of Fondor, Attack on Vardos, Battle of Theed. We've got the Dawn of the New Republic. The Inferno Squad returns from their mission on Takodana. Return to Sullust. Turbulent System Campaign. Hunt for Shadow Wing, which and then we've got a bunch of other internal conflicts within the Empire. And then we have the showdown at Jakku. And Jakku was huge. It was massive. It was one of the last big fights. And all of this led to the Galactic Concordance.
Mm-hmm.
And
which was the official end of the war.
Right. And so we have all these. We see it in Andor, and we see it throughout some of the other series as well, that the Imperials fought amongst themselves all the time.
Oh yeah.
And Palpatine used that to control them and to guide their ambition towards success. He knew how to manipulate them. But without Vader pulling those strings, all of those different personalities vying for control created splinters and factions within the Empire, and they could not contain. They could not retain cohesion
without someone there that everyone feared. That was like at the top. Without an emperor, there was no one, and without an emperor and Vader to pull to enforce the will of the emperor of that emperor.
Right.
And yeah, you're right.
And because once the emperor was dead, there was no chain of succession. Like here within the United States, we have a chain of succession, and it starts with the president. It goes vice president. It goes Speaker of the House. And then I can't remember the rest of the chain, but you've got these things that are written into place, and it has to be followed regardless of political party, regardless of political outcome. That's the chain of command.
Yeah.
Because Palpatine was so control heavy, and so arrogant, he did not see the need for a chain of command like that, or a chain of succession. Once he was dead, there was nothing. So all these other governors who had political power, all these military guys who had military power, they were all vying for control, and it just fell apart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas you look at what happens with the Rebel Alliance and even the Resistance to a point, they had a chain of command that in a chain of succession, like with the Resistance. And I hate to say that this was a great example because it comes from one of my least favorite films, but you look at The Last Jedi and there's a chain of succession. Leia's incapacitated. Who takes over? Admiral Holdo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They already had something in place ready to go in the event that their main leader, their primary leader, was incapacitated or killed.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, we see like what happened with the Emperor after the death of the Emperor and the Empire. We can see that throughout history, where whether it be that certain Austrian former corporal with the funny mustache, or Saddam Hussein, where it's this idea that if once the leader is taken or killed, that system of government collapses. It's this idea that the emperor had, or funny mustache man had, where if you're not an empire that's not able to protect its emperor doesn't deserve to continue in their mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're weak because, hey, you aren't able to protect me, so therefore you don't deserve to live. You should be. Yeah.
It's there's so much at play in this, and I think the way it's been done, the way it's been displayed on screen has been. I mean, a lot of the gaps have been filled in by fans, obviously, or because of material that's been put into publication through the EU, whether it's old or the new Disney version. But
I found this. because I typed in how big was the Imperial fleet. It said a typical Imperial sector fleet comprised of 2,400 vessels. 24. Did I get you there?
No, I've been dealing with a sore throat.
24 Imperial class Star Destroyers and 1,600 smaller support vessels. And then there were independent fleets like the Coruscant Home Fleet and Vader's Death Squadron. But it said that there was at its peak over 1 million warships in the Imperial fleet.
Yeah.
So it was massive.
So that fight that we see in Return of the Jedi above,
that was one sector fleet.
That's one sector fleet, but that was the bulk of the Imperial.
I would say that would be akin to, I don't know what you would like. That was basically Vader's fleet. That was the Emperor's personal fleet. We're looking at the cream of the crop. The troopers that were down there were the 501st.
Right.
Well, no, because they don't. I don't know. Was that the 501st?
That was not the 501st. The 501st Garrison was all clone troopers. By this point, there were no clone troopers. So
yeah, but they still had the 501st.
Let me take a look here.
Because they turned out they became Vader's personal. The 501st was Vader's personal. Personal guard. Vader's fist. Right.
So I'm doing a search here because I know that we see the 501st Legion in Episode 3. Okay, yeah. So it says here, Star Wars Episode 7, Force Awakens, a variation of the 501st Legion logo appears on a banner in Takodana Castle. Star Wars Clone Wars 501st Legion is featured in the 2008 film and the television series led by Captain Rex. They appear in Battlefront 2, the game, but they were featured in expanded universe in the novel Survivor's Quest and the ebook Fool's Bargain by Timothy Zahn. They're the only film where you actually see members of the 501st is in Revenge of the Sith.
Okay. So I knew that
from Revenge of the Sith moving forward, we don't see them because they were all clones and the clones were removed from service.
Yeah. Yeah, but I know in the old EU, like they continue the 501st, eventually with normal, just normal stormtroopers, but they were, the best of the best. They were, the ones that were the most loyal, the most dedicated, the most bloodthirsty, right. And they became Vader's personal, basically stormtroopers. Like they were led personally by him. But that's a long way to go say that. When I always assumed that there was the 501st there because the Emperor makes the comment, my best legions are down on the moon. But I don't know if he was meaning that, if he was meaning the 501st, or if he was meaning his personal. His personal.
If that were the case, if that were the case, Vader would have been down on the moon too.
Yeah.
Vader had asked for permission to go down to the surface to collect Luke.
Yeah. So my thing is those were the Emperor's personal stormtroopers. Like
right.
So
all right. Yeah, I think that kind of about covers it.
Yeah. Yeah. We kind of gone from beginning to the end.
Yep. Which is fun because like you think about it, the Galactic Civil War pretty much is the titular Star Wars that comprises the original trilogy.
Yeah, it was the war in Star Wars.
So that's cool. So John, what are we going to be talking about next week?
I do not remember what we're going to be talking about next. Oh, yes, that's right. Thank you. It has been a holiday. We're going to be talking about Princess Leia next week. Played, of course, by the amazing late great Carrie Fisher.
Yes.
And yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully, Brian will be able to join us for the entire show. So that does it for this week.
Yeah. So I'll let you do our usual wrap up, but I'll speak for Brian here. For those of you who do want to get in contact or connect with Brian, he is part of a Facebook group called the Sith Library, facebook.com/the.sith.library. And you can find him on Carosis, on Instagram as Darth Carosis. And that's how he posts on Facebook. They do a wide collection of mostly Sith and dark side oriented Star Wars posts, but they've got some really good ones out there. Beyond that, as for me, you can connect with me on Instagram and X at GKJ_publishing, or you can check out my show The Right Way on YouTube just by searching GKJ Publishing. And I'm on another new Feast of Fandoms podcast. It's a monthly podcast called Snackame, where we eat snacks and watch anime. It's a lot of fun.
Awesome. All right. As for us right here, if you want to get a hold of us, you can do through our email, warthestars1@gmail.com, or our Instagram. It is at warthestars1, at war_of_the_stars1. X, our handle on X is at warthestars1, and YouTube is at WOTS77. As Garrett mentioned, we are, of course, a proud member of Feast of Fandoms. Check out Feast of Fandoms on YouTube for this show and all the other cool shows on the Feast of Fandom networks. If you want to support the show, Ko-fi.com/War of the Stars. Give us a cup of coffee. Or go to spreadshirt.com/war-of-the-stars- for all the cool merchandise. You can also check us out wherever fine podcasts are heard. Just search War of the Stars, a Star Wars podcast, to check out the audio version of War of the Stars. If you listen to us, or check us out on the Feast of Fandoms YouTube channel. That'll do it for us. As always, remember, this isn't just my Star Wars. This isn't just your Star Wars. This is our Star Wars. Until next time, may the Force be with you.